Welcome to today's webinar, Unlocking AI's Potential in Higher Ed. My name is Jason Martin. I'm an online event production manager at EDUCAUSE, and I'll be your host for today's event. EDUCAUSE is pleased to welcome today's panelists. They'll introduce themselves in just a moment, but let me give you a brief orientation on our session's learning environment. If you are using social media, please use the tag #EDUCAUSEwebinar. And we hope you'll join us in making this session interactive. To do so, one of the first things you can do is open the chat by clicking on that chat icon at the bottom of the presentation window. Throughout the panel discussion today, please use the chat to make comments, share resources, and to pose questions for our presenters. When you do so, please be sure to select everyone from the chat dropdown so that you engage with all participants. We will hold a Q&A during our session, but we encourage you to type your questions to the chat throughout the webinar. If you have any technical issues, you can send a private message to me by selecting panelists in the chat dropdown. And as always, the session recording and slides will be archived later today on the EDUCAUSE website. With that, thank you so much for joining us. And Joe, I'll hand things over to you.
Thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. I'm Joe Licata, the founder and CEO of Canyon GBS. After 2 decades of building cloud and AI solutions for colleges and public sector organizations, I'm really passionate about tools that let educators spend less time wrestling with systems and more time changing lives. I'm so excited to guide today's conversation on unlocking AI's potential across higher ed. And joining me are 2 distinguished panelists, George Chris, Chief Information Officer at Kaskaskia College, and Austin Laird, Senior Program Officer at the Gates Foundation. George, I'm personally inspired by the work you do at Kaskaskia College. I know just over the last couple of months, you have been featured as a part of the Heroes of Higher Education series by Ellucian, and recently took home the 2025 Impact Award for Kaskaskia College. Congrats on that. If you don't mind, could you take a moment to introduce yourself and share your role at Kaskaskia College? I would also love to hear broadly what your institution is most focused on right now and how AI might help.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that introduction. Hello, everyone. I am George Chris. I have been serving as the Vice President and CIO at Kaskaskia Community College for the past 4 years. As Joe mentioned, it's been an incredible journey watching our institution evolve and navigating this rapidly changing landscape. So currently, KC is primarily focused on 2 priorities, I would say. First, we're leveraging data, analytics, and AI to try to increase our student success. Our goal is to win that enrollment race, secure more grants, and reduce our inefficiencies across our operations. And I believe AI will help us succeed in that area. And second, we are deeply committed to helping our staff and faculty and our students adapt and upskill. As a community college, we're seeing a lot of people shift roles and jobs. And so we're hoping to try and upskill them and thrive amid all of this rapid technological change and all these digital advancements.
Yeah, very exciting. Thanks, George. Austin, I'll turn to you next. It's truly my pleasure to know you and have had the chance to work with you. You bring such an impressive background in technology and product management with a focus on higher education for over 25 years. Your work at the Gates Foundation is inspiring, often involving dreaming big about how to make the world a better place for us all. If you wouldn't mind, please tell us about you, your work, and your focus at the Gates Foundation.
Yes, thanks, Joe, and thanks EDUCAUSE and Canyon for having me today. And so happy to be here with you and George. As Joe said, I'm Austin Laird. I'm a program officer at the Gates Foundation. In my work here, I'm part of our post-secondary success team. And the work I focus on is really the intersection of technology and the application of technology to holistic student supports. So that means I spend a lot of my time thinking about what are the ways that we can help bring to market new solutions and innovative thinking around ensuring that every student, no matter their background, has access to the latest and greatest and innovative technology through their institution. And in order to bring interventions along the path of their student life cycle that are going to help them along the way to succeed and to get that credential or that certification they're looking for. I'm very excited about the work at Gates. I've been here about a year. As Joe said prior to that, my career has really been focused around this sort of evolving technology and how to make. Honestly, I always just say I'm just trying to make student and faculty and staff's lives easier at their institution, and then so I'm excited to be here today on this topic. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks so much for that, Austin. All right, so very exciting webinar today. Lots of, I think, topical discussion about the potential use cases for AI in higher education. Let's go ahead and take our first use case. And we're gonna start with academic advising. And, this is really from the perspective of, everybody that's involved in that, including titled advisors, as well as the entire set of student service professionals that are assisting students on their journey. So we have a slide here, and across higher education, we see enormous potential for AI to serve as a force multiplier, surfacing real-time insights, drafting outreach, and really freeing advisors, right, to build that human relationship that truly moves the needle on student success. Looking at this slide here, it shows why this might really matter. At Penn State, for example, 93 in this study, 93.6% of students who met with an advisor stayed enrolled, compared to 73.9% who didn't. And we're looking at ways we could potentially use AI to help identify students at risk, streamline communications, and be able to scale this kind of high impact intervention to every learner. Austin, you're up first on this one. From your market-wide view, which upcoming artificial intelligence capabilities excite you most for boosting retention through proactive, data-informed advising?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. First of all, there's so much to talk about here. It's such an exciting time. I love all the innovation I'm seeing out in the market today in this space, particularly. The perspective I've been thinking about a lot is, so we've been living in the age of chatbots, and what they have done is that's a technology that has allowed our institutions to have 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 365-day access to information for our student population, right? The data equity has been improved dramatically by the ability for students to come to that chatbot and ask a question. Wonderful. Now, what we've got is a scenario where institutions are, they've got all this great communication coming in, and they're actually exposing new interesting challenges about how do we help these students that in the past were somewhere off in a corner and not talking to us, and now they are. So what I'm really excited about with AI, I'm excited about the ability to do sort of the analysis on the data, a more holistic view of, Austin Q student and what he might have asked in the chatbot, what he might have asked, at a desk, as well as all the information we have about him in our systems. Where I believe the sort of, on the sort of trajectory to adopting artificial intelligence, I'm excited about how tools are going to enable our institutions to scale, to your point, Joe. Now we scale communication, we scaled engagement. How do we scale an ability for a faculty, or for a staff member to understand which of those interactions do I need to prioritize? Help me focus on the top students that are coming in the door who maybe they asked a question, but then the activity they asked about didn't actually happen. We can learn about that on the back end, and we can sort of bring a focus to our staff and faculty through new systems with AI.
Thanks so much for that. Okay, so staying on the topic of advising and kind of feeding off of what you were just saying there, Austin, in terms of being able to have data-driven guidance, across institutions, AI is really opening a new frontier in this decision-making process, translating thousands or hundreds of thousands of data points for grades, attendance, engagements, into clear, actionable insights. AI can position academic advising and student service teams to intervene earlier and more precisely than before. That promise is underscored by this statistic we have up on screen here. 87% of higher education leaders say predictive analytics already improves or can improve retention and graduation. Imagine every advisor starting the day with prioritized list of students to contact and specific recommendations, really tailored to each learner's situation. I'm going to turn to you here, George. As you think about data-driven advising on your campus, what possibilities excite you most about AI surfacing timely insights for your student service professionals?
Yeah. So again, I think AI has that potential to eliminate those barriers and hurdles that everyone here has been talking about. We currently are having students navigate multiple forms, asking for all these similar information, which just creates more friction in their educational journey. So we're looking at using AI to leverage in the analytics to help find opportunities to go deeper. AI can identify students who are looking to retool or reskill, especially those who have some college credits but no credential, and maybe they're just a class or two away from earning that certificate or from earning that college degree. AI can help us find these students and, more importantly, help them realize that they may only be a few credit hours from completing said degree or certificate. These connections would probably otherwise go unnoticed in the traditional advising workflow because you just get lost out in the process. And the AI, who's working 24/7, will be able to dig in and find that information and provide that list to that advisor in the morning or directly to the student.
Very exciting stuff for AI to really be able to identify those touchpoint opportunities. Okay, so we kind of covered a couple scenarios for student service, but what about interested prospective students? So let's take a moment to shift our attention for some of the AI use cases that relate to admissions and recruiting processes. Across enrollment offices, we know AI is redefining really what's possible, transforming raw inquiry data into clear signals about who to contact when and with what really personalized message. By automating the heavy lifting of sorting, scoring, personalizing outreach, we can potentially free limited recruiting teams to focus on authentic human connection. Survey here very interestingly shows that we may be at that tipping point. 82% of colleges say they will be deploying AI in admissions, by next year. Institutions that harness these tools may be able to respond faster, more personally tailored communication, and ultimately build classes that are both larger and better matched. Turning to you for a moment, Austin, from your perspective, which emerging artificial intelligence capabilities are you most enthusiastic about for helping colleges create more efficient and student-centric recruiting pipelines?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. There is a lot of innovation to your point. We're seeing a lot of emerging AI-enabled tools in the recruiting space, and I think that's where we've seen the earliest adoption in the student lifecycle on campuses. I think that when I think about emerging capabilities, it's not necessarily the latest and greatest frontier. It's the how do we use AI that leverages our data that we know to, I'm going to use the term hyper personalized, right? So what's hyper personalized? That's just really super tailored experiences specifically for a student, not a type of student, a literal one person. This is tailored for Joe student. And what I'm most excited about is that, we're watching as tools are creating these expansive capabilities in terms of even agentic kind of capabilities, for recruiters. So sort of the digital twin of the recruiter, if you will, and whether you provide that through your campus CRM or some other tool, those tools are out there and they're being widely adopted. What's going to get improved over time, and that I'm excited about, is that personalization piece. Because you mentioned, Joe, personalization. I feel like we've just begun. I feel like we've really just begun to understand how do we create a super tailored experience for each student. And by the way, I wanted to add that kind of a one more thing is that more and more innovative applications are coming to the market that are direct to consumer. So we have students that are showing up at Kaskaskia College that have actually learned a whole lot about Kaskaskia. They've already decided they want to go there with, there's a specific program they want that takes them on a path to a credential that they want. They're very informed, and that's wonderful. How do we get as informed as we can be about that student so we can match them where they are, where they're coming in at, and know exactly what they're going to be looking for? I'm excited about that personalization continuing to improve.
Thanks so much, Austin. I think that there's some really good, interesting opportunities with AI and personalization that we just have not been able to really potentially figure out previously without AI at scale for institutions. So it'll be exciting to see how the market evolves here. We've got a couple questions in chat, which I'd love to kind of just integrate here. So speaking first, we have James. Can you talk about FERPA, HEA, Higher Education Act, and GDPR? And so maybe I can kick that off, and then I'd love to get some of your perspectives on this too, right? So for instance, with the technology that Canyon GBS builds, we are very focused on data privacy. In addition to FERPA, HEA, GDPR, GLBA, state audits, there's also obviously different state level data privacy laws all across the country, with those laws continuing to evolve, with one or two or three different state laws coming into play every year that have to do with managing sensitive data. And initially, a lot of the tools that flooded the market were really consumer grade tools, right? Tools that weren't designed necessarily to house this information. So at Canyon, we go to great lengths to deploy isolated models specifically for every individual college, and to ensure that it's designed and prepared for student data. So you can put anything sensitive inside of like our technology, and I know there's other vendors doing the same. And we particularly go through a annual state audit to ensure that we comply with all these data privacy processes. George, I'm curious for you, like as someone in charge of trying to help guide tool selection at your college, has this question come up on campus? Concerns about like what happens to the information that we're providing to the AI services, and in how are you guys handling that at Kaskaskia?
Yeah, it's come up at times where I didn't think it would come up. And then shockingly, it also has just never come up. AI is this race, and no one ever seems to know where the finish line keeps moving. And my role needs to make sure that KC is on the right path running this race. And we want a smooth, safe, and sustainable way to get these tools into the hands. But I also don't want to be on the local news station that all of our data was leaked and put out there. And so we chose Canyon GBS as a way because we know, we've seen how HIPAA compliant and FERPA compliant they are, and we're able to get this tool into everyone's toolbox, and they're able to start playing and evaluating all of these chat bots and this AI race that's out there. And I know that they can do it in a safe and responsible path while they're still able to get everything they need out of the technology.
Yeah, thanks so much. I know that that's a difficult place to be on that edge of like really amazing technology, but not every product really being focused on like the special kinds of privacy needs for student data. We have another question by Amy, and I think this is a great segue here. I'm curious to what you think the differentiators will be in this space, admissions and recruiting, if everyone eventually is leveraging Gen AI. And what strikes me here is just how, you know, how much specialized expertise and service colleges play around the country. Like, for instance, um, in the case of community colleges, they're often geographically serving like a local market that has specific needs, economic considerations, workforce needs and demands, and there's tremendous opportunity to highlight this two completely different things for a community college in Illinois versus a community college in Michigan in those particular areas where those are located, or colleges that have specialized programs in the admissions and recruiting process, really focusing on how to set students up for success, get them into the right programs, collect the information that's needed, and then, of course, support all the administrative work. Austin, just kind of throwing this over to you with respect to Amy's question. I'm curious, what are you thinking about could potentially be differentiators if everybody's using Gen AI? Do you think local economy, workforce, specialized programs, and personalizing engagement around prospective students is part of it? What do you think? What do you think is going to kind of separate the different institutions implementing Gen AI?
Yeah, it's such a wonderful question. And yeah, because it feels like in some ways it creates a little more of a level playing field once everyone is able to leverage tools like that, right? And I believe that everything you just said, Joe, I would sort of plus one and agree with that. I'd also add that I believe that, when we talk about you started this presentation talking about sort of the importance of keeping humans at the center, but also really empowering the folks that work on the campus to do their job better and give them the opportunity to sort of stop doing the kind of, I call it the keep the lights on work, and do the more really highly valued, nuanced human work. Well, what that means in this case, in my opinion, is um, um, your differentiator is in your people. And your differentiator is in how your people are able to interact with those prospects, those recruits, those current students. That's a big area that I feel is going to be a definitely a differentiator for a lot of campuses. And to your point, it just goes right back into, particularly with the community college or with regional schools, it really goes back to the community, right? And that community you're building, that this is allowing that to happen.
Yeah, thanks so much for those insights. I think this is a great kind of segue moving into our next slide here. We've talked a lot about personalization, and we know it's becoming the new baseline with Gen AI making it possible to tailor every email, text, automated phone calls, social posts, to student interests and a timeline, freeing recruiters to focus on really authentic relationship building instead of just copy and paste kind of work that may take up some of that time where they could have those authentic interactions. And so looking at the figure on screen here, we know that in this study, 81% of prospective students expected personalized replies to their inquiry, and many wanted it the same day they submitted. And so AI potentially can help teams honor that expectation, delivering timely, relevant messages that keep prospects engaged and confident in their college choice. George, kind of looking at you here, what are you most hopeful artificial intelligence will enable when it comes to this truly personalized multi-channel communication to future students for your college?
Yeah, I'll probably go down the path of the differentiation between recruiting and admissions, and I do think it will have that hyper personalization, as Austin meant. I think with AI, we can get into a little trouble where we are making everything spammy in the fact that we're just saying, "Hey, George, check this out," and that's where the people come in to have that actual true human touch to it, keeping the human in the loop. And so I think AI will help us optimize content for online attention in ways we cannot do manually right now. We know our prospective students are already overwhelmed with information. AI can help us cut through that noise with these personalized, well-timed communications. I think that's that recruiting piece. But I also think it's important to work with partner high schools or area locations where you do that recruiting and that retention. We work with high schools and communities where we meet prospects on their terms as well. AI can enhance these partnerships by providing insights on which programs align with our local workforce needs, student interests, creating those stronger connections between our offerings and the community aspirations. Again, that's that admissions and that recruiting aspect. And then a third piece, I think we're focusing on making our admissions funnel as wide and as short as possible. We want to throw that net out there as big as possible. And so we're reaching out through multiple channels. Again, that hyper personalization, email, texting, social media. We even actually revitalized our admissions area to be a more service-centric model where different departments can come in rather than sending students around to get lost in our institutional maze. I think AI will truly enable this personalized aspects, being a multi-channel communication that recognizes each prospective student's circumstances and getting them in touch with an advisor as quickly as possible, who can then have that human touch to go further and provide the match for their individual needs and interests.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting, with that match being able to happen, the ability to almost instantly be able to ask follow-up questions, clarifications, to assist with the process and understanding what's going on, even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, right? And so very exciting stuff in this area. So kind of moving on to the next set of use cases, and we have a question here by Dr. Olson, which I'm going to come back to, that came in a little bit earlier about AI tools for research. And so we're going to kind of jump into that a little bit here as well. But just taking this first slide up, artificial intelligence is opening a whole new chapter for scholarship, right? By instantly summarizing papers, surfacing patterns, and even sketching out proposal drafts, these tools might shift faculty effort from information gathering to insight generation, amplifying both research production and teaching quality. And with the slide that we have up, study was done where 98% of surveyed researchers said they're ready to use AI for literature synthesis. So you can almost imagine walking into a class or grant meeting with a crisp AI generated brief that highlights key findings, gaps, and next steps, freeing educators to focus on interpretation and innovation. So going to you first, Austin, I would love to hear about which emerging AI capabilities are you tracking for helping faculty scholars turn vast research outputs into actionable knowledge faster? How does that change higher education as we know it today?
Yeah, well, the second part's that's a tough one, Joe. That's gonna be a much longer conversation, right? How does it change? But so this space is so I'm going to repeat myself a little bit. I'm excited by everything I'm seeing. There's a lot of great work, and in the chat there are some questions thinking about research and how to support the research I'm doing. I know that there's tools, Canyon being one of them, that are helping to bring a focused approach to how do you create, for instance, as you just mentioned, Joe, the sort of synthesis of materials. I've been thinking about and watching, as an example, I've shied away from naming a lot of institutions and vendors, but I'll name the Allen Institute for AI. The Allen Institute for AI is a nonprofit, and the reason I bring them up is, as an example, they have created a tool that does that learning synthesis across a basically 8 million item repository of research papers. Why that's important is that in any sort of open LLM, GPT kind of world, you don't really know what you're getting, and it's hard to source information. So if I'm a faculty member and I'm starting my day, and today I need to go talk about quantum mechanics, and I want to know I want to reassure myself that I've got the right literature and the right research. I can do that, and I can create a lesson plan even with a GPT, and that's wonderful. The reason I bring up the work Alan is doing is because I believe it's going to inform what other vendors in the space are doing, any of your sort of large LLMs and GPTs. And it's helping to create an environment where you can say, oh, not only do I know that the source of this is all legitimately sourced, I can see the source of these various quotes that are then brought together in one learning synthesis. So they've created a model that actually says, hey, here's a learning synthesis based on multiple sources. When you have a tool that can do that, whether it's through a local tool you've built with a kind of a RAG model, or it's through a vendor working with Canyon, or it's working with Allen AI, that's exciting, and I'm really excited about that. It's funny because a lot of the things I talk about, they're sort of, it's the next thing we can do. It's not there's some interesting things out there to your point about the future of higher ed and how it changes a lot. There's a lot we could talk about there, and I'm excited about where that could go. But very near term, just these capabilities that help our faculty and our research faculty prepare to go teach and ensure they're ready to go is game changing.
Yeah, and I'm just going to bring in Dr. Olson's question here. What AI tools are most reliable for doctoral students editing APA citations, APA management of the construction, while still balancing the protections and participants, and can help with data coding, themes? How do we navigate it with review boards, IRB, and data privacy? And then I'll also bring in Yvonne's question here. Can you share how a university might use your tool to train the model with its own data? What would be high-level requirements or process? I know data engineering can take up to 80% for a project like this. I'm going to kind of bring those together and kind of frame a question here for the panel. I think there's a lot of different technologies which excel at different parts of the research stages for doctoral students or even faculty research. We know that like synthesis kind of work is very effective. We also know that there are some challenges when AI is kind of agentically just going out to the internet and looking for things by finding poorly referenced sources for an academic purpose, maybe like bringing in things that are on a blog that aren't valid, a valid or like peer reviewed kind of source. And so like one way a researcher might think about this is starting with tools to figure out what the set of what the four corners are of the research that should be considered in the topic that they're working within. And AI can be very helpful agentically to kind of help traverse Google Scholar. Austin mentions Allen Institute and some of the really exciting tools that they're putting together for being able to identify, papers. And then kind of to Yvonne's point, you can then identify and take the full text source of all of these papers and build a custom advisor that has this data added to that advisor with the purpose for this advisor and all the engagements with it solely for the production of that particular research that you're doing, and then engaging that custom advisor built for this purpose with the sources that you provided using something like RAG methodology and things like this behind the scenes, kind of point and click. And then the last piece of this is like, well, what about the fact that we want to bring our own maybe surveys in, our own data, and the fact that data privacy sort of governs this? And that comes to tool selection, right? Making sure that the set of technologies that you're picking are enterprise ready. And that's tough, right? Because buying enterprise ready tools means that we have to have single sign-on built in, we have to have isolated models, we have to make sure that it's audited for data privacy, that it's compliant in higher education. So if you have the right set of tools and then you use these tools to identify and help you selecting papers, but then also finding papers yourself in the old, the traditional ways, and then bringing them all into a space where you've brought this data into an advisor that specifically helps you with that task. And then you work through sort of the development, not taking out the human part of this, but being really a co-pilot to kind of support those efforts is one way you can potentially marry this and put it all together. So I'd love to kind of get both of your thoughts on this, starting with you, George. Just the process of going from an idea to a business process that then plugs in AI at the right place is an enormous change management challenge, right? And really understanding how to use these tools and layer them together. How are you thinking about what it might take to create this muscle memory for researchers and for really folks using AI to even think about, hey, AI can help me with this part, and this is one way I might do it?
Yeah, that is a loaded question. So I think having some sort of governance, it doesn't even have to be official governance, just a communication body where people from across the division or across the campus can get together and at least talk about and understand what AI can and can't do and what the university or college would like the AI to do or not do. And from my perspective, a lot of it goes with the perception of what AI, and we need to set those expectations. For example, on our students, I think a lot of students understand that they probably shouldn't be using AI for certain things, but the expectation is they're unclear on whether they can use it or not. And so trying to build that into the syllabi saying, have a red assignment, which means absolutely no AI can be used, where orange can be you can use some AI to flesh out those themes and those ideas, but you have to create the content on your own. And then green meaning have at it, use AI till your heart's content, because I remember not being able to use calculators on my assignments, and you know what? I use a calculator every single day. So I think a big component to all of this is also those expectations. What can be used, what can't be used. If we have special research funding or federal grants that we need to be really cognizant of where this data is ending up, we have to set those expectations that this is not the tool or this is not how we need to utilize the AI to be able to be processed through all the multiple systems that are using it. I hope I answered the question.
Absolutely, George. I think that's great. And, we'll talk a little bit more about data governance and dig into that in this webinar today as well. I think that foundation is going to be critical. And Preeti's question here in chat, I think, relates very closely to this, which is, how are we empowering staff, our human resources on campus and the infrastructure on campuses? And kind of the follow up to that is, what's the strategy are we taking to keep them informed about how to maximize AI impact? And so, like, even what are the possibilities, right? Question for colleges, so that when they are forming data governance and, maybe pathways to leveraging AI in various contexts, that is being set up with, like, this is green to go, and here's 10 ways we can do that, to kind of create that muscle memory and change management. Austin, what are you seeing in the market in terms of this kind of services layer where, there are, potential opportunities for experts to potentially engage and brief institutions, or what other kinds of resources are out there for institutions, to even be aware of all the possibilities with AI, both in a very big sense and then tactical enough so that they can potentially act on it?
Yeah, and I've been thinking a lot about how some of the institutions, I think this is actually further in our deck, but thinking about how institutions are approaching, bringing this knowledge to campus. And I think the to your point, Joe, the resources I would look to, I mean, first off, EDUCAUSE is a great community and has communities of practice around the application of AI to different use cases. And I think it's really important that we do find those communities of practice, whether it's through EDUCAUSE or maybe it's centered on an organization like through ASU+GSV or some other resource. My starting point in answer to your question is EDUCAUSE, and then other related organizations that have been built up through this community that's here on the call. I think that then through that, it's been really interesting to watch how kind of going back and reflecting on what you said, George. I feel like the thing that we can easily forget is that the average user, the average person sitting at an institution doing their job um, doesn't have a lot of time and space to think about, how do I use this new tool? I don't have time to go learn a new tool. So leadership like yourself, George, and like others that are creating space for that, whether it's a development day where we just talk about AI and give us the chance to be curious. Let's be curious about what are the types of things we could do. That's really important. And I think, Joe, there's ways we can go to organizations. I'm going to mention EDUCAUSE again, but go to different organizations like that to facilitate those discussions and help bring in experts. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that whether we're talking about whatever part of the student life cycle or the teaching and learning life cycle we're talking about, what I'm seeing is a lot of on the ground folks that may even have access to great tooling, but just haven't had the chance to really try it, and may even be scared to try it. I know I was the first time I started using these things, and so helping facilitate getting over that, I think, is just super important in all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Austin. I think that transitions nicely into our next slide here. I'm just gonna kind of bring in Eli's comment in chat. Let AI do the admin stuff, right? And so that's a little bit like what we're talking about here. AI offers higher education a chance to rebalance faculty and really workloads across all student service professionals, auto drafting recommendation letters, assembling accreditation evidence, populating routine reports from existing data. AI tools have the potential to relieve the faculty groups of more administrative and paperwork activities and let them focus on discovery, mentoring, innovation, and teaching. And surveys show that even up to 44% of time that was expected to be spent on research is being swallowed up by administrative efforts across the country. George, what are you hopeful AI might unlock here for faculty when it comes to easing that administrative burden and giving instructors more time for teaching and mentoring?
Yeah, so two things jump out immediately at me. So I'm hopeful AI will bridge that gap between the faculty's innovative ideas and classroom implementation. So, faculty have brilliant creative teaching concepts, but taking that idea to reality requires time, which sometimes they just don't have. And so sometimes it's a great idea, but it's not worth the effort for something maybe deemed simple, like a discussion board activity or a quick research topic that has suddenly sparked up. You want to do that to engage and make your classroom thoughtful, but it can take time. And so AI can take that great idea, flesh out the process, and allow the instructor to utilize it without that extensive development time that was previously required. Again, it's that human human touch there instead of the AI. Let it do the work. This means they can be more innovative teaching with less of that administrative burden. And then second is in the classroom. I remember when I was teaching, there's a lot going on, especially in that first 10 minutes of class where students are coming in late. They're asking you all kinds of questions. You're trying to log into the computer's not starting. You got to get the cameras up. And so what's particularly exciting is all these AI tools aren't always limited to a particular modality. They can be face-to-face or online, but having the equipment that is set up has that AI built into it that allows them to turn on when it recognizes someone's there, and cameras that follow you around so you don't have to worry about always being in focus in the screen and being able to take what's on the whiteboard and have it automatically go into your LMS. These tools are out there now, and we need to make sure our teachers teach and not have to worry about being tech experts to get the content and their knowledge to the students. Basically, amplify the instructor's experience.
Yeah, and I think that that's the theme we're seeing emerge with AI, right? Which is AI as a force multiplier, right? Taking and amplifying the capabilities. Because we know the staff at Kaskaskia are most knowledgeable about improving service and quality and success at Kaskaskia. And so it's not about applying necessarily something generic. It's about amplifying the ways your team does what it does best. And that's true of colleges all across the country, right? And really figuring out ways to, to support staff and the work that they're doing. That's great. Thanks so much, George. Okay, the next use case scenario that we want to jump into a little bit here is technical support. And so we're going to go into the use cases for technical teams. So we know that AI can supercharge every campus system, and we know that we talked about this a little bit earlier, only if we integrate it responsibly. Embedding strong governance, role-based permissions, audit trails, encryption, IT teams can deliver AI-augmented services while honoring FERPA, GDPR, and cybersecurity standards. And on screen here, that diligence addresses a very real worry, right? 86% of higher ed IT professionals and leaders are saying data privacy tops their list of AI concerns. When we architect integrations with privacy first and move from hesitation to innovation, expanding what our SIS systems, LMS systems, and CRMs can do, but doing that without compromising trust. So back to you, George. Looking ahead, what are you most hopeful about secure AI-ready capabilities that will enable your technology team and the broader constituents that they serve?
Yeah, so AI-ready capabilities, I hope will help us navigate where we don't have to see this middle ground of just early adopters and the laggards, trying to bring them together and finding that ROI on using software and systems like this, especially when rolling out new technology. So our IT team, I think, holds the promise of a lot of predictive support. If you're in the IT world, you spend a lot of time going through logs. And if you spend enough time in logs, you kind of know what's coming up, what's going to happen by seeing what's happening in the past. Identifying and resolving these issues before they impact the students and faculty is great. And having an AI sit on a log and monitor it, I think holds tremendous value. For students, we talk about 24/7 technology assistance, understanding their specific needs, bringing all of their student information, their classrooms, where they're going, what classes they're taking, even pulling what type of computer operating system they're using. AI can help provide that tailored experience for that 24-hour, 24/7 support. Having that personalized technical support is I would have loved that as a first-year student, being able to just basically hit the ground running. And in the future, I hope to just see technology where it's just truly invisible. Our students and faculty can focus on teaching and learning without all of these barriers that pop up. Sometimes they're purposeful barriers, sometimes they're not. But the ultimate promise of AI is AI-ready capabilities, technology that adapts to humans rather than forcing humans to adapt to technology. And so our IT department, along with our governance and working with other shareholders and stakeholders, is to make sure that this becomes a reality here at KC.
And just a follow-up question there, George. So, like, one of the ways Canyon is trying to support institutions to create like a community of practice around AI, whether that be in student service teams, recruiting teams, teaching and learning, IT, is to create spaces where, for instance, IT professionals might create like a really good engineered prompt to dig into logs and analyze that behavior. And then once they kind of really perfect that, add that to a prompt library that like other staff can like upvote, and you could track like the usage of that and really kind of see and share within the application, that this worked really well for me. Let's let other people have access to it as a concept. I know that this happens in many ways inside of software and outside of software. What are some ways that institutions can build kind of a community of practice around AI, sharing those things that are working well, and being able to kind of, work together to learn as an institution, like what works best to get the job done?
Yeah, I think people, when you mention AI, people are scared, and so they're afraid to really dig in, and they don't always know how to dig in. And so having your committee, your group, your cheerleaders to really say, "Hey, you can do this. You can throw this in there." One prompt that we have that has actually been up liked a lot has been demystifying the user agreements and contracts. So we for our purchasing department, I've created this prompt that basically just dumps it all in, and I don't have to worry about FERPA or HIPAA. Dump it all into the chat, and it spits out, what are our concerns, the cost, the terms. It takes that legalese and puts it into normal human language, and we're able to see that breakdown really, really quick. And so, now people are talking because they're excited about this, and we're creating other prompts in other areas. And then once people are starting to get into it, it's sparking, oh, maybe if I do this and I can do this creative idea and I can start doing this, and it's starting to grow organically. But you got to plant that seed first and a couple strong stakeholders, and it'll take off, especially when they see that it's very beneficial. It'll grow really fast.
Wonderful. Thank you, George. And we talked a little bit about this, and we mentioned logging, but whether it's drafting PowerShell or Bash scripts, or just uploading all of your IT security policies and helping for vendors, reviews, we know that AI has so much potential to help operational technology teams that have so many considerations that they have to take into account in all the work that they're doing. Interestingly, 78% of organizations already leverage AI somewhere in their operations or in their operation, and IT is one of those leading use cases. And that seems like it could translate into faster resolution, leaner processes, and better service without extra headcount. Austin, thinking about this across higher education, what are you really most excited about for AI helping IT teams to do more with the resources they have?
Yeah, so you and George talked through a number of the ways I had been thinking about it, particularly thinking about my own IT past and sort of where I spent time. Would have, to your point, George, would have loved to had some of these tools, 20 years ago. But since y'all talked about those things, it gives me a chance to share a little further out thinking, which is that, when you think about the workflow of a student, maybe a returning student coming to campus, many times they're talking to an enrollment management officer, and in the middle of their business flow of getting them onto campus, all of a sudden the student says, "Oh, I can't authenticate. I can't log into this site." That right there could actually be enough to turn the student away forever because they're unable to actually log in. And what happens is they're directed to IT, who clearly wants to help them, but doesn't necessarily have the capacity some days to respond quickly. What I'm excited about is when you think about the way y'all are talking about implementing these technologies that support IT, now we can think about taking those and then even embedding them further into the business processes of the institution, such that if I'm that student and I'm going through that process to sort of re-onboard into the systems, instead of having to wait for a response, there's actually an agenta capability there that says, "Hey, Austin, this is the action you need to take. go reset your password here and come back to the screen, and it's done, instead of waiting for a person to interject and say, oh yeah, this is the thing you need to do. And then I'm right back talking to that support person who's helping me figure out how to get into classes. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about and the reason is, clearly it's helping the student. It's also taking something off the plate of IT and letting the IT folks spend more time again on the more nuanced activities that they need to do to really improve the institution's IT support. So that, I think that's very exciting. It's sort of an exciting next extension of how we can take these technologies.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. And I know some institutions might be thinking at this point, um, well, okay, that all sounds great. We're dabbling here or maybe there, but where do we really get started comprehensively? Like, if we're really trying to comprehensively make our organization AI, enabled, AI enhanced, what does that potentially look like? And I know George gave some great examples, and I promised we'd come back to data governance and AI governance, and we're going to do that here in just a moment. But we've kind of broken it down into 3 steps for an institution, and there's also an artifact attached to this webinar, an AI playbook for higher education leadership that dives a little deeper into some of the things that we talked about today, as well as some steps that they can take to get started. But now, as AI moves from like a buzzword in just a couple of years ago to now an indispensable tool for so many teams, where we're seeing real gains in efficiency, insights, and student support, the institutions that act now will likely set the pace for innovation in higher education. So, to harness that promise, we recommend a 3-step strategy, starting with AI governance, piloting and proving out the technology, and then scaling the things that are working and refining. And this progression turns cautious first moves into broad, responsible adoption that lifts every corner of the campus, right? So if we dive in really quickly to AI governance and data strategy, and starting back with privacy and AI, we know that AI is transformative, but only if we weave it into a rock solid governance fabric. And treating AI systems with the same rigor that we reserve for any enterprise platform, clear policies, vetted vendors, airtight security, then we unlock these powerful new capabilities without sacrificing trust. And we know that 59% of campus leaders are actually worried that AI could jeopardize like institutional reputations related to data privacy. And there's robust governance frameworks covering FERPA, GLBA, GDPR, HEA, and all the data privacy laws that are statewide across the country, which vary from one state to another. And if we can have the governance layer cover that and shift from anxiety and apprehension to action to fully leverage AI across our core systems and auxiliary systems, there seems like tremendous potential. So, I know we've talked about this quite a bit, George, but just would love to get your thoughts here. You are doing this work already. You are establishing governance at your institution. How important is that for enabling your teams to adopt technology that's approved and passes the test, and isn't just innovative, but is innovative and secure, to support academic teams and support your students?
Yeah, you have to have a good framework, and strong governance doesn't mean saying no to the innovation. It just means asking the right questions so we can say yes with confidence. Does this application align with our institutional values? Does it protect student privacy? Does it promote equity? These are the things that data governance team can help implement. And then taking these ideas, which I'm looking at the webinar chat here, there are so many good ideas. I'm going to take all of these and taking it to the committee, and hopefully we can then build these great ideas in and continue the growth process. But again, it starts with strong governance.
You're on mute, Joe.
Thanks, Austin. And we know coupling that governance with change management and training is going to be essential. And so in our last slide here before closing out the webinar, we know that AI has the capabilities and the promise to lift every campus division. And the technology alone isn't going to get us there. So the real impact depends on people, giving faculty and staff the training, time, encouragement to integrate AI into their daily routines. Right now, we know, depending on the study, around 16% of the individual workers are using AI, and most figured it out on their own. By pairing clear expectations with hands-on workshops, leadership support, colleges can move the majority from hesitation to confident, proactive use. So Austin, for our last panel question here today, before we close out, which emerging approaches to institutional training and adoption, are you looking at, and do you believe might be most meaningful for use across higher ed institutions?
Yeah. So very quickly, I think that, as mentioned before, sort of conceptually, providing space for folks to actually ask the question and be curious, how can I start to use this? And then the institutions that I see, they're providing a sort of a playbook or exemplars on, hey, here's the tools at your disposal. These are already in line with systems we use today. They're already made available through our systems of record or through your desktop systems. Here are specific examples and ways that you can use it. I feel that creating that space and doing that's the most important part. And everything I'm saying, they're approaching it different ways. Some of them are doing, campus-wide trainings or campus-wide announcements, creating teams, groups, etc. Those are all viable and all important. But I think conceptually, it's the give us time, space, and help alleviate some of that fear and getting us started.
Thanks for that, Austin. I would just like to thank our amazing panel for joining us today. It was an absolute honor to do this webinar with you both. Thank you to EDUCAUSE for creating the space to have this conversation. And to all of you who attended, we wish you a wonderful remainder of the day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all. Just want to say I put the link to the registration page, which is where you can find the AI playbook. It's there linked already for a download as a resource. We also have the recording, which will be posted there later today as an archive on the website. And please take advantage of the opportunity to leave your feedback for Canyon and the presenters. The link to the survey is there in the chat. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you at our next webinar. Really appreciate it.